Hi sewers, welcome to Sew Darn Fun. I'm Carrie and this is a channel that focuses on quality clothing alterations, pattern reviews, and useful sewing how-tos. And today, let's talk about how to move a bust dart. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to move that bust dart that's on the pattern before you make the garment and put it in a place that might be a better location for you, or maybe some other different things that you can do with that dart to make it more pleasing. Let's get to the table. First of all, before we get into anything serious, I am going to assume that you are just like me and that you want to preserve your original pattern. I have this big roll of, it's like butcher paper, and I think we got it at our local big hardware store in just a big roll. You might have Swedish tracing paper, that works well. And Swedish tracing paper, you could put the tracing paper over the top of this and trace your pattern. This I can't see through, obviously, and so this is a system that I sort of came up with, but first I'm going to pin down my pattern. So we're just going to pin pattern down so it doesn't move anywhere. All right. Now, I've heard this done with Sharpie pens before, but I have never had a Sharpie pen that was actually wet enough, and maybe you can find one that's wet enough. I found these highlighters that work really well for me. This is what I have. I'm going to pick the size that I want to cut out, and I'm just going to trace it. So this is all my preliminary stuff. Trace it out as it is, kind of slowly. Make sure that it's leaking through. You can see right there, you can barely see that it is. All I need is just a little bit, a trace of a line that we can forward through this part too as we trace this pattern on here. Be sure you trace where the darts are on your pattern. Now we're going to cut out our new pattern. That's the piece we're going to be playing with. So here's the shape of my pattern, and it's a little funny shape on top because it is this pattern right here, and it has a little tie right here at the neck, which is really cute. So I just decided to use this one for our demonstration because it has both a bust dart and an optional waist dart. So one of the things that we want to do here is figure out where the center of our darts at the tip are, to figure out where that bust point is. The bust point is not marked on this pattern. Some patterns will have like a circle and an X in the middle. That's the apex of the bust and a point at which aligns to the body. So what I'm just going to do here is center my straight edge in the middle of my waist dart at the bottom and the top, and just sort of draw a line just up until it's past the level of my bust dart. I'm going to do the same to my bust dart, starting at the corner here up through the tip, right there. That is my apex. That is my bust point. Let's say I don't want this bust dart here. For whatever reason, I just want to move it. You know, some people just want to get rid of it, but garments that have darts built into them look better on your body. But if you want to move this dart, you can move it to the waist. You can actually move it to the shoulder. You can move it to the center front. There's so many places you can actually move this dart using these same principles that I'm going to show you. What I want to do here is I'm going to cut this dart out. This is the stitching line here. So this is where we would be stitching. We're just going to cut that out to give us some room here. There we go. And then we're going to cut to the middle, but not through the middle. Just stop short of the middle, right there. What I want to do is, this is kind of a fish eye dart here. I'm just going to cut this out. This waist dart might not actually be the best one for presentation because it is kind of a shaped dart. Usually it's completely wider at the bottom than it is at the top, but we're going to use the distance here for our purpose today. Typically these darts would just have straight lines up and maybe not quite so far. Our focus is to move our bust dart right here. So what we want to do is cut this waist dart up to the same point but not through. We want to leave a little hinge, little pivot point right there so that we can actually close up our bust dart. And just butt those two edges together. Don't overlap because those are stitching lines. Remember, those don't have seam allowances. Those are stitching lines. We just want to close those up. And then you see that we have opened up this big portion in the waist. This now can be sewn. When you cut out your fabric, can be actually sewn like a regular dart. Or here's a good hint for you. If you don't want a dart there, you can belt this top. You can put elastic in the bottom. You can gather this little edge here if you don't want to put a dart. Otherwise, you would sew that dart up like you normally would, right sides together, and then stitch your seam up there. What else can we do? Oh, I know. This pattern piece is both halves of this blouse front. There is no button down the front, but let's pretend this blouse has a center front placket and a button down front. So I'm just going to cut this as if it is half a pattern here. And I didn't do my drawings on this half. I only did them on this half. Let's take this away and put it back as it was. Cut in this way. Tape this together over here. Tape that bust dart back, and then you have got a little spot here in the center front that you could gather. It will be curved like this, and I'll show you a blouse in just a second that has this same thing done to it, except the blouse that I have, it's been opened up more, so there would be more gathers. So if you wanted more gathers in the front, you could cut this. We're going to cut just to the side of our original bust dart, come all the way to the side, but not through, and then you can literally pivot this piece, opening it as far as you want for the gathers that you want in the front. See that? You still don't have a side dart, but you have the dart in the center front with extra gathers that make a design statement right there. So anyway, that is the basic of how you can do moving a bust dart if you don't want that bust dart there. The same goes true if you happen to have a French dart. Let's say you wanted to do an alteration on a pattern that has a French dart. This is a French dart, and it's a long dart that comes somewhere in the lower third of the bodice and then angles up toward the bust point. And it's a combined bust and waist dart into one. Some people love them, some people hate them. This pattern does have the bust point marked on it, which I've got right there. The thing that you're going to want to do is measure the distance between these two end points right here. Mark the very middle on a foundation paper and then draw a line straight up through where that point is. I've already done that with a little pink line here. And then let's say that we want to start our bust dart 2 inches below. I'm just choosing a number. You might want it lower so that it kind of more angles up on the body toward the bust. A lot of people like that. This one might be a little high, but just for demonstration's sake, we're going to do it. The seam allowances on this pattern are 3/8 of an inch, so I've got this marked right here at 2 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to want to draw a line from where I want my dart to that bust point. There we go. So we've got the intersection of my bust point line and then my French dart line right there. So kind of reversing the concept that I did in the first part of this video, I'm going to now cut to but not through that center point right there at the bust point. And this one needs to be cut up just a little bit farther. There we go. Now I can close part of that. I don't know if I want to close it the whole way because that puts both the waist dart and bust dart in one point right there on the side. So what I might better want to do is also make a waist dart. So let's measure about 3 inches from center front, which I think is standard for darts and pleats and things like that, about 3 inches from center front. And let's draw that line straight up. We're just going to draw it up. Okay, I apologize. I'm going to go over some footage that I thought I was recording and I apparently wasn't. Okay, so what I did, okay, we had our French dart here. We had our newly created bust dart here. And what we want to do is return that to the first position that we had before we created it and continue the line that we drew all the way till it intersects with the waistline that we drew. Then we're going to cut to but not through where those intersect. And then we're going to cut to but not through our waist dart right there. Now, what I had to undo that was a little bit messy was we're going to close up the French dart. And being that seam allowances are included in this pattern because it's a French dart and French dart, so just a little bit different, we're going to overlap that 3/8 of an inch because that is the seam allowance on this pattern. And now we've got that closed up nice and tidy, and you can see how this kind of can pivot around. So what you can do is you can make that bust dart as big or as little as you want it, as well as the waist dart. So let's say I like it kind of split in the middle, so they're about even. Then let's just tape that together right there. And I basically have my new pattern. I have my waist dart, I have my bust dart. Keep in mind, you don't have to sew the waist dart all the way up to here. You can put a pleat there. You don't even have to sew it up. You can belt it, you can tuck it into your pants or whatever, or you can just sew it up a little bit. So that's the basic idea of how you can move darts around to put them where you want them. Let me show you a couple examples of some blouses with this different kind of darting. Okay, so this pretty girl right here has your basic side bust dart. And it also has a waist dart that instead of having it sewn in, it's just a little pleat, like a 1-inch pleat there at the waistline, which creates a nice look. And also, just incidentally, in the back darts, the back waist darts are actually just pleated at the waist in the center back. And this girl, she's got the French dart. And you can see the French dart is on the lower part of the bodice, and then it comes up at an angle and finishes out somewhere in the bust circle, which is a 3-inch radius around the apex of the bust. This is the combined bust and waist dart in one. Now this crazy one is really fun. So when I move these ties out of the way, you can see these gathers. Maybe you can through all this crazy fabric. These gathers just right in this little bust area. And on the side, there's nothing. Nothing. There's no waist darts. The darts on this blouse have been moved to the center front, which seems like an odd idea, but it makes a beautiful, beautiful blouse. So those are just a couple examples on the different types of darts that we have. And that's all there is to it. Hopefully that made darts a little bit less daunting for you, and that helped answer some of the questions that you might have had about what do I do with these darts if I don't like where they're at. Thank you for watching, and also thank you for giving me a thumbs up and subscribing. I really appreciate it, and as always, keep on sewing, and I'll see you in the next video.